Ahora vamos a movernos rápidamente a la última mesa de esta mañana y lo vamos a hacer en un tema que hemos visto que tiene muchísima relevancia a lo largo de estos 2 días, que es el desperdicio alimentario y cómo lo transformamos en oportunidades. ¿Qué estamos haciendo con todo lo que no usa la industria alimentaria y con todo el desperdicio que se genera tanto en las casas como en la industria? Y para ello contamos con 3 ponentes de excepción, tanto emprendedores como ponentes de la industria. Tenemos a Schlemme, founder of Renewal Mill. Welcome, Claire, to the stage. We also have Daniel Rejzner, CEO and co-founder of Day 8. Welcome, Daniel. And we have as well Juan Aguiriano, Group Head of Sustainability at Kerry Group. Welcome, Juan. And now I'm going to take off my presenter hat and I will put my moderator hat. And yeah, let's start with this roundtable. We have been talking a lot these 2 days about food waste. We have been saying that 30% of all the food that we produce is just discarded. And while this represents a challenge, a major challenge for the food industry, it is also an opportunity. It's an opportunity for productivity for the main industries, but also to give new business models to new entrepreneurs. And I would like, first of all, for you to set the stage, to tell us what you are doing in your big and small companies. Can you start introducing maybe Juan?
Me?
Yes.
Okay. The old guy first. That's
okay.
Very good. So my name is Juan Aguiriano. I'm Spanish and Swiss. I work for Kerry Group. Kerry Group is a very large corporation in taste and nutrition solutions from biotechnology. And our goal, we reach roughly 1.2 billion people through our customers nowadays. And our objective is to reach 2 billion people with sustainable nutrition by 2030. So I'm the head of sustainability, and it's not a separate strategy. For us, is how do we use sustainability to totally transform the company into a sustainable nutrition impact company. So I look forward to the discussion.
Wow. Major challenge, indeed.
Small, very small challenge. Yeah.
Do you want to continue, Daniel?
Sure. I'm Danny, CEO and co-founder of Day 8. I'm passionate about reducing deforestation and biodiversity loss. And my experience is in entrepreneurship, so I know how to build profitable companies. I've combined both of these in Day 8. Where we upcycle agricultural leaf residue, which contains rubisco, which is an amazing protein the food industry is waiting for. We already have over 25 food manufacturers engaged with us, and as a first crop, we've decided to work on banana leaves, so we're currently working with banana growers on scaling up production of their discarded leaves.
Nice. Claire.
Hi, my name is Claire Schlemme. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Renewal Mill. So we are an upcycled food company. We're basically mining the food system for byproducts that are otherwise going to waste. We're bringing those back into the food supply chain in the form of ingredients that we're selling to other companies so that they can use them in their products, someone like maybe Kerry. And then we're also using them in our own products as well so that we can reach customers directly. And the goal is really to keep that nutrition in the food supply chain and have the impact of using waste rather than having it be thrown out.
Thanks. While we were saying food waste is a challenge, we in EAT Food, for example, ask for new ideas, new collaborative projects to be co-funded, and still this area is the one in which the few programs only apply. There are others like alternative proteins where we have a lot of interest on new ideas, but here we still need to traction it. We still need to ask the people and say, hey, please bring your ideas here. From your point of view, and I will start with you, Claire, sure. What are the main and the key barriers to scale up the use of upcycling food?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and I'll just point out too, I mean, I think as you mentioned, like the scale also means that there's just a lot of opportunity. So we know that there's like billions of pounds of waste that we're like processing out of our food supply chain. So there really is a big opportunity there. And it is worth kind of thinking about, why hasn't this already been addressed? Like, why isn't there already a solution? And that helps us kind of focus on what are these challenges and these barriers that we need to overcome. And I think sometimes it's related to kind of needing to think more holistically as a food producer. So if you're really hyper-focused and you kind of have this linear food production model going from your inputs to your final product, sometimes that byproduct is not anywhere close to the core competency of the company. So you need someone else that's going to come in and be able to connect that product into a different type of market. The market itself is a challenge too. For a lot of these byproducts, they're not known. They don't have a market. So the big challenge there is actually creating a new market. And that takes time, and it takes resources to be able to do that. And it takes, sometimes it takes creativity as well. You're trying to find what are the attributes with these new ingredients that we're bringing to the market that fit in best with what customers are currently demanding, and you want to be able to build that bridge. And then I think the other piece of it too is that it's an economic issue when it comes down to it. If a producer that's producing byproducts already has a solution, even if it's not even if it's kind of a negative solution, they're having it hauled off to landfill. If it's something that's working in their process, it can be a hurdle to be able to change it, because that might require some amount of cost and time inputs, and food is generally, a fairly low margin space that we're working in. So there's often not necessarily the will to be able to do it. So I think one of the things that we see to help overcome some of these challenges is basically looking for the incentive structures, or trying to help change the incentive structures to make that kind of overcomable there. But I think those are, some of the challenges we see. And related to that kind of changing what you're doing with it, it's a little bit all or nothing for some food producers, right? It's more costly and can be more time consuming to say, okay, I'm going to have most of my byproducts go through this waste process that I already have set up, and I'm going to divert some of it over to being food. That's more logistically challenging, and really what you want to be able to present to someone is a whole solution. We're just changing it over from, you were doing this and now you're doing that. And that can be challenging when, going back to what I said earlier, sometimes you don't have the market created yet. So it's a little bit trying to find the places where that all or nothing kind of solution can work, and building that market for these products.
Indeed, and you brought a very interesting topic about consumer awareness, about the markets, and I would like to go to Kerry, a big industry now, and ask you, how do you differentiate these more sustainable products within a very, very competitive market, full of products made from scratch and very brand new? And what is I'm very interested as well to know what is the role of the consumer and its perception on it.
Yeah, it's a great question. Let me give you some examples, okay? There are many technologies to upcycle available, but you need to use it in a context that is useful to the consumer. So there is a big crisis in the world on cocoa right now. Cocoa, unfortunately, there's a biodiversity and climate change impacting Ghana and Ivory Coast that represent the vast majority of cocoa. And the prices have gone up, not a little bit, 10x, 30x. And there is speculation going in the market, unfortunately. You cannot control that. But what you can do is, can you still give a chocolate experience to a consumer with less chocolate? Now, less chocolate might be, the first reaction would be, oh, this is not as good. Well, it depends how you look at it. Too much chocolate is bad. It's fatty, it's not so good for nutrition. It's an indulgence food. You can have it once a week, don't have it every day. Sorry if there are chocolate producers here and they're going to be upset with me. There's a balance, right? Like anything in food, it's not the quality, only it's the quantity, how many times you have it. So what we do is we take cocoa waste. There's less cocoa available, so we upcycle cocoa waste into cocoa taste. We call it waste to taste. And we can do that across many things. Citrus, There is less oranges right now. We can do it for orange. You can do it for cocoa. You can do it for plant-based. You can do it for many things where you upcycle something into something useful. Sometimes it's as simple as explaining that to the consumer. This is a healthier version of chocolate for you, right? Milk, full fat, skim milk. You need to explain it. Interestingly, in many countries, skim milk is more expensive than fat milk, right? There used to be a time in dairy where you would produce cheese and whey was a byproduct that was given to the pigs. Today, whey protein is the industry and cheese is the byproduct. So it's been done by the industry for dozens of years, but we now need to do it in the context of the planetary boundaries, okay? And how do we upcycle everything? Because the scandal is that 31% of food is never consumed. Okay, if food creates greenhouse gas and deforestation issues, it's a social good. Without food, we die. That's ethically acceptable. Not great, but acceptable. But to produce 10% of greenhouse gases, to produce 30% of food waste, that's totally unacceptable. So what we need to stop is talking about waste and talk about products that are upcycled. And the consumer needs to be educated that it's good. Nutritionally, organoleptic, taste-wise, it's the same. The problem is, I don't want to eat waste. Well, it's not waste. Definitely. It's a product that's not been upcycled yet. And so that's the whole culture eats strategy and technology for breakfast. So it's a cultural message that we need to be out there. Yeah. And then we can do many, many things in the industry. Many things are possible. Technologies are available. The only difference is we used to do it. We have a business which is a stocks business. It's my grandmother, right? On chicken on Sunday, then soup, stocks on Monday, croquetas on Tuesday, omelette on Wednesday, and you reuse everything. And with the bones, you can even do biofertilizer to grow cereals you give back to the chicken. We call that business a circular chicken, right? Because somebody does the chicken nuggets with the breast of the chicken, and we take back the bones and we do taste, waste to taste. This is not small, huh? Hundreds of millions of euros and dollars on that. Scaling up old solutions from the grandmother with biotechnology and doing it from upcycling with less impact. It's a massive future. And so for the startup companies here, this is the most promising field you can be in. Waste to taste, waste to protein, waste to health. There's something called beta-glucan, which is a yeast byproduct. Yes. It creates immunity, health. So pick your choice, look at the byproduct and convert it into something useful, and we'll buy it.
Thank you, Juan. And yes, it is indeed for Kerry, but we also need to take into account that starting to use and to produce alternative sources of proteins from discarded leaves like Daniel is doing, it may have a cost implication compared with more standardized mainstream alternative sources of protein that can become a challenge or can be a challenge for startups and entrepreneurs. Can you tell us about your experience, how you keep the costs still competitive?
Sure. So for us, I would say there's two elements to this. First one is the initial raw material cost, and the second one is using well-established processes in the food industry. And I'll explain. Essentially, these impact both the cost, but also the scalability of the business. So in our case, we have kind of an unfair advantage. We start with something that's typically discarded on the ground, so the cost is zero. Obviously, there's a cost to collect and deliver, but we start with something very cheap. And secondly, in terms of the processes that we used, our team is from the food industry, from the protein industry, actually, with very many years of experience. And it was clear to us that any process that we intend to integrate is something that's already well established in the industry. And the impact of that is, again, on cost and on scalability. So it allows us to use toll manufacturing as opposed to investing significant capex in setting up production. It means that we don't need to develop a dedicated machine. It means that the time to market is much quicker and that we can scale much more. From the raw material standpoint, I think the cost is pretty self-evident because it's cheap, but also from a time to market and from a scalability standpoint, by avoiding to grow something new and by using waste, and this is applicable to any waste stream, it's very easy to scale once you get it right, because at that point, essentially, it's just about integrating and partnering, in our case, with additional growers. And the industry that we've selected to start with, bananas, for example, is a massive industry. So we have a 7 billion protein production capacity just of bananas. There's massive companies like Dole and Chiquita and Del Monte, which we can partner with, and you can scale very quickly, very significantly, and make a lot of impact.
How long did it take you from when you were doing the kind of research to be able to be more at a scale?
So first of all, we're not scaled yet, but we invested 1 year in evaluating the different potential streams and the sources and crops. And one of the things that I think is important, we talked about the challenges a bit. So from our experience, because we work with farmers in the agricultural industry, typically people are not necessarily crazy about innovation. You know, the farmer has enough troubles on his head as it goes. So it's really key, on the one hand, to make sure that it's profitable for them, but on the other hand, that it has a minimal impact on how they're doing things today. Because if they need to change something from how they're doing this today, that's going to be a massive roadblock, which is going to be very hard to work around. So we've invested a year in mapping out the supply chains of all the different crops. Banana, which is the one we selected, this is one of the advantages. Essentially, when they harvest the bananas, they chop off the whole top of the tree, so it grows again, and then it's just about picking it up, so it's no problem.
Indeed. So your feedstock is regularly there.
I say it's money on the ground. Yeah, it's literally on the ground. Yeah.
And I would like to know for Claire, how do you manage with this availability of feedstock?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of echo what we've already heard here too. It's really, what we were really intentional about how we were looking at the byproducts that we wanted to first be utilizing. And the first one that we looked at is called okara. It's the pulp that's produced when soy milk is made. And one of the things that was really advantageous about that was that it's pretty consistent, the way that soy milk is made. So this byproduct is pretty consistent, which means that we can scale by bringing on new producers and not have to worry about the consistency, like the quality of the supply being different. And in North America, at least, it's pretty concentrated production already. So there's maybe like 5 or 6 major producers of soy milk in the US and Canada, which means that you can scale relatively efficiently because you only need a few large-scale installations in these facilities to be able to access a large majority of the market. That's not always true with other waste streams. My start was in a juice business, and in that industry, juicing is very distributed. So it'd be much, much harder to try to kind of capture all the juice byproducts in an efficient way. So I think being really intentional about, the byproducts that you're first looking at, and like sourcing them and where they're coming from to try to get ahead of these problems is really key.
Indeed. And using the byproducts is one thing, but we also need to focus on reducing the amount of valuable products that are discarded. And from the industry point of view, what strategies is Kerry implementing to reduce the waste? I know you don't want to call it waste.
No.
Still. What strategies are you doing to reduce it across the overall operations and the supply chain?
Yeah, just one point to build, and before I go to the waste reduction. So once you have a product, and we were talking with Danny about that, he has a fantastic Rubisco now that now needs to become a real beverage or real food. And that's where the partnership starts. The molecule is invented here, and then you have to scale it. And that's where the industry comes. If you want to do a beverage, okay, it needs to taste well. don't add too much sugar. The shelf life needs to be good. The economics, the scalability of the equipment, etc., etc., etc. So this is the functionalization and the scalability of that. I was talking with Guillermo Blasquez, who is in the room from Bühler, the equipment part. How do you do that at scale? So that is not a niche beverage that is super expensive, but is something that is mainstream, that has fantastic protein content, fantastic taste, long shelf life, and is affordable. So if you can do these 4 things and save the planet on the way, right, then you're winning. But it needs to be converted, right? And so maybe it's not beverages, it's going to be teddy bears for people that do not want to have animal gelatin in the teddy bear. And you have a plant-based that does that, right? So there are hundreds of applications, but choosing the right one is not so easy.
Definitely.
What do you scale from an application? And that's where the partnerships are really important. And then the other thing is identifying the waste is a product. So you need to have enough of it in a stable quality. So quantity and quality. So banana is a smart choice. It's an industry, it's established, fully available. And then last but not least, once you've done that, is then how do you reduce the total waste? And so that's basically an efficiency play. Put your industrial efficiency, Six Sigma and engineers, and you tell them, you treat waste as a critical metric, like money, because waste is money, actually. You just need to put a value to it, and then it gets reduced. It's not, we've reduced, we put a metric to it in the last 5 years. We said we will align to the SDG 12.2, right? 50% food waste reduction between 2020 and 2030. We didn't know how difficult it would be. In 3 years, we did 42%. Yeah, we're on the way, right? Now we're saying, okay, how do we do that for our customers now? So now it's the whole upcycling. We've done it for us, but we're now working. We invited 5 startups to our innovation. We had 100 people coming from our own teams for a full day to listen to them, to tell us what they're doing and figuring out how we accelerate that. That's the way. And then everybody went back and said, oh, the factory director said, I have an idea. And we had 100 initiatives that came out of that. Indeed. It's just a culture. Liberate people, ask them to create stuff, and they come back with fantastic ideas.
Besides these 5 startups, are you working collaboratively on other initiatives on food waste?
Where is Adriana in the room? She's not in the room. She doesn't like to listen to me. She knows the story. We have a person that is an open innovation director. She's probably talking to a startup. And we work with EIT, we work with accelerators, we work with institutions to identify startups that want to work with us. Takes 2, huh? It has to be a marriage or a partnership where you both want to play together. Indeed. But we do that. We do not invest. I think the model of investing, it's starting at the end. I think more, let's develop a product together first.
Yes.
And then see if it works, and then you do the investment decision later. I think that's the difference between a VC and an industrial. The industrial doesn't talk about the money first, he talks about the product. I think there's some wisdom in that, even if it's slower. Do you agree, Danny?
Indeed.
We need both.
You also need the money, of course, yeah.
Of course. And you were mentioning about data and measuring the impact, and I would like to ask Daniel as well. What is your experience in measuring the impact that you are having on the environment?
That's a good question, because it's super tricky, right? There's like so many ways that you can slice and dice it and try and figure out how you're doing things, and also the data is not always very available, and the calculations are pretty hard to make, but you have to choose something. So I can talk to what we did, and it's related to my personal passion, so this is what I wanted to impact, and that's a lot around deforestation and biodiversity loss. For me, within the broader climate sense, biodiversity loss is the thing that's not really reversible, right? Maybe might take a few million years and they come back, but not in the near future. So I think that's really something for me that's very passionate. And in our case, what we did in order to try and estimate that, so there's 4 million hectares annually that are converted to farmland. And our claim to fame is that we create more food from existing farmland. So we made the calculation as, okay, what is the production potential if we can upcycle all the available leafy waste from agriculture? By the way, that's not everything. In a lot of crops, it's just not relevant for us, but in many crops it is. We've estimated that. We've estimated the production potential, and then we've compared that to soy. So we said, okay, if you had to grow soy and produce soy protein for the same amount of protein, how much would that be? And what we came out with is 47 million hectares, which is roughly around 12 years of deforestation. That's obviously the entire potential, right? But hopefully we can do one or two, and this is a yearly amount. So this is very significant.
We are running out of time, but I would like to ask you, to the three of you. I'm an optimist, so I want to think on the future and what are the emerging trends that you are seeing on the way or coming that will have a true impact on this reduction of food waste or upcycling food.
Yeah, I think it's been really exciting. I mean, I started Renewal Mill about 8 years ago, and it's been so exciting to see the concept of upcycled food moving from kind of like an early trend into a more sustained movement. So we have in the US, we have an Upcycled Food Association that we co-founded, and that's grown from an initial 12 companies to almost 250. There's a big presence of upcycled food at all the major food shows now. And we see customers are beginning to really understand what that means. I mean, when I started, it was like having to start at the very beginning to tell the story, and now people know, and they're excited to be part of the solution.
Thank you.
For me, I'm a big believer in the business world, both in terms of energy, talent, resources. I think for me, that's where most of it is. And at the end of the day, it's all about the people. So I think this event is a great example. There's everybody in this room and out there are people that want to contribute also to something bigger than just the bottom line and want to make some impact. And I think that's where it starts. If it's startups or if it's larger corporations, I think the people here are bringing this into the business mindset. Yes. And once businesses decide to put the bottom line and impact/doing good, roughly on the same level, then we can solve any and every problem easily.
Yeah, I think we need to think really big and systemic. So I'll give you, and it's not only about new molecules, it's about old industry and reinvent them. So bread, 50% of bread is never consumed. And beer produces 30 million tons of spent grain. Now, bread is really solid beer. And beer is liquid bread. From bread waste, you can do beer. Mm-hmm. And from spent grain, you can do bread. So we need to get these two industries together, which are massive, and start creating back these products based on that. And there are technologies, there are people that do this at this mini scale. How do we transform the whole food system?
Definitely. Thank you very much. If I have to keep three things of this conversation, I will keep choosing on scalability, changing the mindset of the consumers to not avoid those food waste, and partnerships. So thank you very much. I think it's been very, very inspiring conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.